grew up in foster care while my parents raised my younger sister. But now that I am a successful surgeon, they want to reconnect and borrow money for her wedding, claiming they did what was best for me at the time. I was 12 years old when my parents sat me down at the kitchen table and told me that they couldn't afford to keep me anymore. It wasn't a long conversation. They didn't cry. They just laid out the finances like a business meeting. My mother was pregnant with my sister, Violet, at the time. My father had lost his job at the factory about 6 months prior, and they were living off my mother's part-time wages from a bakery. They said the apartment was too small for 2 kids. They said babies are expensive. They told me that the state would take better care of me than they could. They made it sound like I was going to boarding school or something, not the foster care system. They said it was a temporary measure until they got back on their feet, but I think even then at 12, I knew that wasn't true. The day the social worker came, my dad didn't even come out of the bedroom. My mom hugged me quickly, handed me a trash bag with my clothes in it, and turned back to the TV. She was already visibly pregnant with Violet. I spent the next 6 years bouncing between 4 different foster homes. Some were okay, some were really bad. I learned pretty quickly that I couldn't rely on anyone but myself. I stopped waiting for my parents to come back for me after the first year when my social worker told me they had voluntarily terminated their parental rights so they could focus on providing a stable environment for the new baby. That was the first time I realized that I wasn't just a temporary burden. I was the sacrifice they made to keep their new life with Violet afloat. I threw myself into school because it was the only place I had control. I stayed late at the library every day just to avoid going back to whatever house I was living in. I got straight A's, not because I was a genius, but because I was terrified of failing and ending up on the streets when I turned 18. I got a full-ride scholarship to undergrad, and then I clawed my way into medical school. I took out loans for living expenses. I worked nights as a scribe, and I barely slept for about 8 years. I'm 32 now. I finished my residency in general surgery 2 years ago and joined a private practice that specializes in bariatric and reconstructive procedures. For the first time in my life, I have money. Like real money. I met my girlfriend, Claire, during my 3rd year of residency. She's an anesthesiologist, so she gets the hours and the stress. We bought a house together last year in a gated community, the kind of place I used to look at from the bus window when I was a kid moving between foster homes. I hadn't heard from my biological parents in 20 years. I knew they were still in the same city because I looked them up once or twice out of morbid curiosity, but I never reached out. I saw pictures on Facebook of Violet growing up, prom photos, graduation photos, vacations to Disney World. They clearly got back on their feet enough to give her the childhood they told me they couldn't afford for me. Then, about 3 weeks ago, Claire and I were profiled in a local luxury lifestyle magazine. It was a puff piece about power couples in medicine. It mentioned my name, my practice, and included a photo of us in front of our new house. I didn't think much of it until last Saturday. I was actually off call, which is rare, and Claire and I were just drinking coffee in the kitchen. The doorbell rang at 9:00 a.m. I checked the security camera on my phone. I saw a man and a woman standing there. They looked older, obviously, but I recognized them instantly. It was my parents. My stomach dropped. I physically felt like I was 12 years old again, standing in that kitchen with the trash bag. I told Claire who it was. She knows my history, so she immediately asked if I wanted her to handle it. I said no. I walked to the door, but I didn't open it. I spoke through the doorbell intercom. I asked them what they wanted. My mother looked at the camera and smiled this tight, nervous smile. She said, "We saw the article, honey. We just wanted to see you. It's been so long." My father was looking around at the porch at the expensive landscaping. He said, "You've done well for yourself. We're proud of you." I felt sick. I asked them to leave. I said I had nothing to say to them. My mother started tearing up. She said, "Please, just 5 minutes. We want to explain. We want to reconnect. We're family." I turned off the intercom and went back to the kitchen. I was shaking. Claire asked if I wanted to call the police right then, but I said no, they'd probably just leave. They didn't leave. They stood on the porch for 20 minutes, ringing the doorbell every few minutes. Then they went and sat in their car, which was parked right in front of my driveway. Finally, after an hour, I went out there. I stayed on the porch. I told them that if they didn't leave, I was calling the cops for trespassing. My dad got out of the car. He looked tired. He said, "Look, we know you're angry. You have a right to be, but we did what we had to do. Look at you. You're a surgeon. If we had kept you, we would have dragged you down into poverty with us. We gave you a chance to succeed." That logic twisted my stomach. They were taking credit for my success because they abandoned me. Then he got to the point. He said, Violet is getting married next month. She's a great girl. She's always wanted to meet her big brother. We're a little short on the wedding costs, and we saw how well you're doing. I actually laughed. It was a dark, angry laugh. I asked them if this was a joke. They abandoned me for 20 years, and the first time they show up, it's to ask for money for the daughter they kept. My mom got out of the car then. She said, it's not just about the money. We want you to be at the wedding. We want to be a whole family again. Violet is marrying a great guy, Travis. They're young, they need a head start. You know how hard it is starting out. I told them I had no idea how hard it was starting out with parents because I did it alone. I told them to get off my property. My dad started getting aggressive. He said, don't be ungrateful. We gave you life. We made the hard choice to let you go so you could have a better future. The least you can do is help your sister have her special day. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911 right in front of them. I told the operator there were trespassers refusing to leave. My parents looked shocked that I actually made the call. My mom started crying, saying I was being cruel. My dad spat on my driveway and got back in the car. They drove off before the police arrived, but I filed a report anyway just to have it on record. I spent the rest of the weekend just staring at the wall. I felt guilty, which is stupid. I felt like maybe I should have heard them out, even though I knew they were just using me. Claire kept telling me I did the right thing, but it's hard when the people who are supposed to love you make you feel like the bad guy for having boundaries. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought they would be too embarrassed to try again. I was wrong. Update 1 2 days ago, on a Tuesday evening, the doorbell rang again. I was still at the hospital finishing up charts, but Claire was home. She called me immediately. She said there was a young woman and a man at the door. The woman was shouting that she knew I lived there and wanted to talk. I checked the doorbell camera from my phone at work. It was Violet. I recognized her from the Facebook stalking I'd done over the years. She looked exactly like my mother did 20 years ago. The guy with her, I assumed, was Travis, the fiancé. I told Claire not to open the door and that I was leaving the hospital right then. It takes me about 20 minutes to get home. I watched on the camera feed while I drove. I know, not safe, but I had it propped up. Violet was pounding on the door. She was yelling, I know you're in there. Stop hiding. Claire actually opened the door, but she kept the storm door locked. I could hear the audio through the app. Claire told them calmly that they needed to leave. Violet screamed at Claire, who are you? The maid. Get my brother. I need to talk to him. Claire, God bless her, didn't even flinch. She said, I'm his partner and he's not home, and even if he was, he doesn't want to talk to you. Travis stepped up then. He looked like a frat boy who never grew up. He said, look, we just want to talk. His parents are really upset. He called the cops on them. Who does that to their own mother? Claire said, someone whose mother abandoned him at 12. By the time I pulled into the driveway, they were still there, arguing with Claire through the glass. I got out of my car still wearing my scrubs. Violet turned around and saw me. She froze. It was the first time we had ever laid eyes on each other in person. I was 12 when she was born, but I never saw her. They gave me up before she came home from the hospital. She looked me up and down. She didn't look emotional or happy to see me. She looked annoyed. So you're him, she said. The secret millionaire brother. I walked up the driveway. I was tired, I was hungry, and I had just spent 10 hours in surgery. I said, Violet, I assume you need to leave. Mom and Dad are a wreck, she said. They tried to reach out to you to apologize and you treated them like criminals. They just wanted to invite you to my wedding. They asked me for money, I said. They didn't want to invite me, they wanted a bank. Travis chimed in. That's not fair, man. They made a sacrifice for you. They talk about it all the time, how hard it was to give you up so you could have a better life. And look, it worked. You're rich, you have a huge house. They struggled for years to raise me. I mean, to raise Violet. He slipped up, I caught it. To raise you, I asked. Violet cut in quickly. Travis has been close with the family for years. The point is you have all this, she gestured at my house, and we're struggling to pay for a venue. Mom and Dad said you could easily afford to help out. It's family. Family helps family. I looked at this girl. She had a designer purse on her shoulder. She was driving a newer model SUV parked on the street. She didn't look like she was struggling. She looked like she was living the life my parents bought for her with the money they saved by dumping me. I said, my family is inside this house. You are strangers who happen to share some DNA with me. I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you a wedding venue. I don't owe you a relationship. Violet's face got red. She stomped her foot, literally stomped it like a toddler. You are so selfish. Mom said you were difficult as a kid. That's why they had to send you away. She said you were unmanageable. That hit me hard. It was a lie. I was a quiet kid. I did my chores. I tried so hard to be good so they wouldn't send me away, and they did it anyway. Claire came out of the house then. She stood next to me and took my hand. She said to Violet, you need to go, now, before we call the police again. Violet sneered at Claire. This doesn't concern you. It does, I said. She's my family, you're not. Leave. Travis grabbed Violet's arm. Come on, babe, let's go. He's a prick. We don't need his money. We do need it, Violet yelled at him, breaking the facade. We lost the deposit on the catering hall. That sounds like a you problem, I said. Violet looked at me with pure hatred. I hope you rot in this big empty house. You think you're better than us just because you cut people open. You have no heart. They walked back to their car. As they drove away, Travis rolled down the window and flipped me off. I went inside and Claire made me sit down and drink a glass of water. I was shaking again. It's weird how you can be a grown man, a surgeon who deals with life and death every day, and still feel like a scared little kid when your family is involved. I thought about what Violet said, that my mom told her I was difficult and unmanageable. It hurts that they not only abandoned me, but rewrote history to make it my fault so they didn't have to feel guilty. They poisoned Violet against me before we ever even met. Claire asked me if I wanted to block them on everything. I realized I hadn't blocked Violet on social media because we weren't friends, but my profile was public enough that they found me. I went through and locked everything down that night. Update 2, I wish I could say things quieted down, but this is the age of the internet, so of course it got worse. Yesterday morning, I was scrubbing in for a procedure when one of the nurses, Rita, gave me a weird look. We're friendly, so I asked her what was up. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. Have you seen TikTok this morning? She asked. I don't really use TikTok. I have an account just to watch funny dog videos, but I never post. Rita showed me a video. It was Violet. She was sitting in a car, crying. The caption read, "My millionaire surgeon brother refuses to help our dying parents and his baby sister." I watched it. She didn't mention the dying part in the video, just in the caption for clickbait. In the video, she was sobbing about how her brother was given up for adoption to a wealthy family, lie one. I was in foster care, not adopted by wealth, and now that he's reconnected, he looks down on his biological family for being poor. She claimed that our parents showed up to invite me to the wedding with open arms, and I called the police on them for being poor and dirty. She said I slammed the door in her face when she begged for help saving our parents' home. Lie too, they wanted wedding money. The video had about 50,000 likes. The comments were brutal. Dox him. What hospital does he work at? Money changes people. Doctors are God-complex narcissists. I felt like the room was spinning. This could ruin my... If people started harassing the practice, my partners would be furious. I went to the locker room and called Claire. She had already seen it. She was furious. She said she was already reporting it for harassment and misinformation. I decided I needed to get ahead of this. I didn't want to post publicly and feed the trolls, but I have a few friends from med school who are pretty active on social media. One of them, Thomas, has a decent following because he posts about medical education. I called Thomas and told him the truth. I told him about the foster care, the lack of adoption, the fact that I put myself through school with loans, not wealthy adoptive parents. I told him they came asking for wedding money, not to save a house. Thomas was livid. He went into the comments of Violet's video. He didn't just comment, he stitched it. He made a video saying, I went to med school with this millionaire brother. Let me clear some things up. He laid out the facts. He explained that I aged out of the foster system. He explained that I worked nights as a scribe while studying. He pointed out the inconsistency in Violet's story about wealthy adoptive parents versus state care. Thomas's video started gaining traction because the internet detective crowd loves a debunking. People started going through Violet's older posts. They found pictures of her recent vacations, her designer bags, and posts about her dream wedding planning. The tide turned fast. The comments on Violet's video shifted from "your brother is a monster" to "wait, you went to Cabo last month but you're begging for money. And why did your parents give him up but keep you?" Violet tried to argue in the comments, but she's not very smart. She replied to one comment saying, "My parents did what was best for him. He wouldn't be a surgeon if they hadn't given him up." That comment got ratioed into oblivion. People tore her apart for the logic that abandoning a child is a favor. By last night, Violet had deleted the video. She actually deleted her whole TikTok account. Travis, the fiancé, made his Instagram private. I was relieved the video was gone, but the damage to my peace of mind was done. I was worried about patients seeing it. I was worried about my partners. I sent screenshots of everything to my practice manager just to be transparent. They were understanding, mostly because the video was deleted so quickly, but they warned me that I needed to keep my family drama away from the hospital. I thought that was the end of the social media war, but then I got a DM on Instagram from a user I didn't recognize. It was Travis. The message said, "You happy now? Violet hasn't stopped crying. You humiliated her. Mom is having heart palpitations because of the stress. You are ruining this family. Just send the money and we will go away. 20K. That's all we need. Small price to pay to get your life back." It was extortion, plain and simple. I took a screenshot. I didn't reply. I sent the screenshot to Claire. She said, "That's it, we're going to a lawyer tomorrow." I felt exhausted. I just wanted to do my job and go home to my quiet house. I didn't want a war, but they wouldn't stop. Update 3 yesterday was the breaking point. I was in the middle of rounds. My pager went off, but it wasn't a medical page. It was the front desk of the main hospital lobby. I called down. The receptionist, who I know well, sounded panicked. "Dr. Bennett, there's a woman here. She says she's your mother. She's causing a scene." My blood ran cold. I told her to call security and that I was coming down. When I got to the lobby, I saw my mother. She wasn't the quiet, weeping woman from my porch anymore. She was screaming at the security guard. I gave birth to him. "You can't keep me from my son. He's a doctor here. He owns this place." I don't own the hospital, obviously. Patients were watching. Staff were watching. It was my worst nightmare. I walked over. "Security," I said. "Please escort her out." My mom saw me and lunged. The guard held her back. "You ungrateful brat," she screamed. "After everything I did for you, I carried you. I sacrificed my happiness so you could be this big shot, and you let the internet mock your sister. You let them call us bad parents. You are bad parents," I said. I didn't yell. I just said it. The lobby went quiet. "We saved you," she shrieked. "We lived in poverty so you wouldn't have to. We gave you to the state so you would have food, and this is how you repay us, by destroying Violet's wedding. She can't even show her face online. You kept Violet," I said. "You figured out how to feed her. You just didn't want me. Stop pretending it was altruism. You threw me away." She stopped screaming and looked at me with this twisted expression. "And look at you. You turned out fine, better than fine, so we were right. You owe us. You owe Violet. She suffered because we didn't have the money we would have had if we didn't have to worry about you for 12 years. The logic was so insane I couldn't even process it. She was saying Violet suffered because they felt guilty about me, or that Violet deserved my money because I took their worry for 12 years. "Get her out of here," I told the guard. "If you don't help us," she yelled as they dragged her toward the sliding doors, "I will sue you for parental support." I looked it up. In this state, children have to support indigent parents. I checked with my lawyer later. That law exists in some form, but it's rarely enforced, and certainly not when there's a history of abandonment termination of rights. I went straight to the administration office. I apologized profusely. I explained the situation. They were sympathetic but firm. This couldn't happen again. I left work early. I went to the lawyer's office where Claire had already set up an appointment. We showed him everything. The doorbell footage, the text from Travis demanding $20K, the deleted TikTok, we had screen recordings, and the report from the hospital security. The lawyer said we had enough for a temporary restraining order immediately, and likely a permanent one given the extortion attempt and the workplace harassment. We filed the paperwork that afternoon. The judge granted the TRO against my parents, Violet and Travis. I sent a text to my mother. It was the first time I had texted her directly. I attached a photo of the restraining order. I wrote, "The police have been notified. If you, Dad, Violet, or Travis contact me, Claire, or come within 500 feet of my home or the hospital, you will be arrested. This isn't a negotiation. You gave up your rights to be my parents 20 years ago. You are strangers. Do not contact me again." My phone didn't blow up. I think the reality of the legal documents scared them. They are grifters, but they are cowardly grifters. Claire and I went home. We ordered pizza. We sat on the floor of the living room with the lights off, just watching the street. I felt hollow. I realized that for 20 years, I had held on to this tiny, secret hope that they actually did love me, that maybe they really were just desperate and heartbreak had kept them away. But this week killed that hope. They didn't love me. They saw me as a lottery ticket they had thrown away and now wanted to cash in. They saw my success not as a point of pride, but as a resource they were entitled to. Violet is the one I feel the most confusing mix of emotions for. She's awful, entitled, and mean, but she's also a victim of their narrative. They raised her to believe I was the problem. They raised her to believe she was the princess who deserved everything, even if they couldn't afford it. In a way, they ruined her more than they ruined me. They gave me trauma, but they gave her delusion. I don't think I'll ever hear from them again. The restraining order is pretty airtight, and without the possibility of getting money, I'm useless to them. It's quiet in the house tonight. Claire is asleep. I'm just sitting here thinking about that 12-year-old boy with the trash bag. I want to go back and tell him that it's going to be okay, that he's going to be a surgeon, that he's going to find a partner who defends him like a lioness, and that he doesn't need them. I'm going to change my number tomorrow. I'm going to look into better security for the house, and then I'm going to go back to work and save lives because that's what I do. I fix things, but I can't fix them, and for the first time, I'm okay with that.